Every morning, the countdown begins for the markets with meticulous research and analysis designed to help you capitalize on the trading day. Beaming live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. Every day is new. Every day brings headlines. And, well, there's a big Trump interview, which we're going to play excerpts out of. And there's a bit about India as well from Davos, which we will play out. That's small soundbite, but a punchy one at that. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Nigel and Reema. Guys, hi. Morning.
Hi, good morning. Today actually looks like a good morning, right? Going by the green on the global markets, the GIFT Nifty, gap up. Finally, it's going to look a lot better than yesterday.
Well, that's right. The person who leads Greenland slept well last night because he was unlikely to be picked up. Trump is sounding more rational. Hopefully, he sticks to that.
And Modi's back to being a great friend.
Yeah, that's true. Hopefully, translates into something. So as of now, those cues are good. I'll tell you, put all these cues together, we should have a good day. Otherwise, it counts for nothing. So let's see if that happens.
Reema symbolically wearing the color of peace.
Peace. The white dove.
Okay, well, let's just quickly run you through what you need to know as we begin this new session. And I want to start, of course, with India, right? And President Trump was asked by our very own Chandra, who's, of course, with money control, and she managed to get a response from President Trump. And we'll play that soundbite out. So this is what President Trump said. Confident of a good trade deal with India, and Prime Minister Modi is a fantastic leader and a great friend. I mean, it's not new. He said this many times before in terms of his posts and other comments he's made elsewhere. But I mean, I think the comments come especially at a low point as far as the sentiment here in India goes. So that line has not changed. I mean, I think that is essentially, does this mean that, I mean, something is imminent and something is being worked upon as we speak? We're not any wiser in that sense after these comments than we were before it. But as I said, it's to do with sentiment, and perhaps this is a bit of a booster. Now, U.S. markets also bounced back a little bit. So S&P 1.25% higher. Nasdaq was up about 1.25%. The Wix sold off about 16%. That's the CBOE Wix. So we're back at just under 17 levels on the Wix. Now, Trump said that he had reached a framework of a future deal on Greenland, framework of a future deal. So not even framework of a deal, but of a future deal. So agreeing to agree upon something. I mean, right? But the point is, and there was Mark Rutte, who's the NATO chief, who's on record to AP, Associated Press, who said, well, we are far off and things have to work out, etc. But this is what I was saying last week as well. I mean, eventually this issue of Greenland will have to be resolved with something of a compromise. And it may get worse before it gets better, but eventually there's got to be some sort of a compromise. And President Trump, in that speech he made yesterday, we'll play out snippets. He's kind of backed off from saying, well, he said, well, the only way I'm going to get it is if I'm forceful and there's military action, but I'm not going to do it. So I think all those things made a difference, at least in terms of sentiment and markets who were worrying that this is going to escalate. And of course, President Trump also said that he would not impose tariffs on goods from EU. This is the other thing, which is, of course, being watched closely. In that sense. So you don't want another trade war between two large trading blocs. The 10-year yield ending about 4.5 basis points lower. I mean, the prior session, we had a very sharp 7 basis point jump. So we're at about 4.24%. The dollar index higher. I mean, actually, this has been incredible, right? Flight to safety and all that talk over the last 2 days, basically. Till Friday, everything was okay. And then this week, global markets, largely led by the Japanese bond yields rising, looked a little wobbly, but the dollar did not move. I mean, at least not for the last 5 days. Yesterday, it moved higher for the first time. So about 15 basis points up on the dollar index. Tech stocks did well. The U.S. Supreme Court was hearing the case about Trump trying to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook. And there were some headlines saying that they were not really convinced this way or that way. They were generally wary about the attempts to fire her. I'll just come to the market here. Now, Nifty yesterday recovered 400 points intraday at the day's high. But of course, we did not manage to end at the day's high. And I think that is because the other leg of the market, which is the currency, the rupee, also recovered, but it went straight back to the lows, right? So the recovery on the Nifty was not accompanied by any recovery on the currency, which, by the way, is looking extremely weak. I mean, it's basically just a complete risk-off tone, almost anchorless. 91.7 or so is where we made a fresh low as far as the rupee is concerned. So, and that needs to stabilize, and we'll talk more about this as we go forward. What can be done, and are there any tools available? 91.80 is a strong resistance for the dollar against the rupee. And I think we got to almost there, and then perhaps there was some intervention because you moved right back about 20 odd paisa before you sold off again. But this needs to have some stability. I'll just leave you with one interesting data point. So ICICI Pru Asset Management Company has resumed subscriptions into its small cap fund with effect from tomorrow. And I think it is a I remember our S. Naren's on the channel here about, 3 weeks back, talking about how, he was the first to kind of advocate for multi-asset funds and a big one for gold and silver. And now he's starting to say that maybe the risk reward is not all that great with regards to precious metals vis-a-vis equities. So I think there is that element as well. And generally speaking, ICICI Pru is a bit of a contrarian on this one in terms of timing it. And he said for a while that at this point, everything looks too overvalued and there is no clear contrarian bet to take, small versus mid or vice versa. And he's advocated for large caps as a preference. So, I think this is interesting at this point in time, and we'll try and get more details. So this is small cap fund right now, nothing on the mid cap fund. I'll just tie in the levels here. The Nifty 200-day moving average is at 25,123. And we broke below it intraday yesterday, but we closed above it. So this becomes the pivot kind of to watch, 25,123. And you've got the 20-day moving average, which of course is gone for the Nifty Bank, and we ended below it. But I think that is the other one which should be in focus. 59,547 is where the 20-day moving average stands at this point. Well, let's talk about the F&O Qs and where we are at. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a 160-odd point higher start. Nigel, take it away.
As you said, the GIFT Nifty is indicating a 150-point gap up, and by the end of today, we want to see that sort of a return. Going by the kind of underperformance that we have seen and going by the cues that we have, because we have a more rational sounding Trump at least, just in the near term. So that's good news from a global standpoint. And the sentiment driver is the fact that ICICI Prudential Small Cap Fund has reopened for subscription after many, many months. So that's good news as well. And that's going to be a sentiment driver, particularly for the broader markets. There's also the Sensex weekly expiry, so we'll keep an eye out on that. Moving to the flows yesterday, the FIs, well, not too bad. They sold 1,800 crores because Nimesh had told us towards the end of trade. There was an MOC basket buying as well, so maybe that played a role. So they sold only around 1,800 crores. I say only because the last few trading sessions, they have been selling anything between 3,000 to around 4,000 crores. So net between the two, you had the institutions that were net buyers in yesterday's trading session. What did the FIs do on index futures? No prices for guessing. They added short positions yet again, but they added some longs as well. And now the short positioning is holding at around 89%. And in absolute terms, it's more than 2 lakh contracts on the short side, while the DIs, they are holding at around 1.5 lakh contracts on the long side. So both of them at the opposite ends of the spectrum. The FIs aggressively net short. That's one data point that you're clinging on to. In case you get some good news, those shorts will have to scamper for cover. And the other technical levels or the technical indicators that we look at, the PCR, that's close to the lower end of the range. We saw it bounce off 0.6 the other trading session. So around 0.78, that's closer to the lower end rather than the upper end, not even near the medium end. So that's one data point. The other factor is the RSI has come down to around 28. Normally in the vicinity of around 25 to around 30, that's the indication the market's got into a bit of an oversold zone. So these indicators are in there, but will we see a big trading session? And going by the cues, we should see one. Going to the options data then, 25,200 call, fair bit of open interest build up, 25,100 put as well, a good amount of open interest built up out there. So going by these data points, I'll bring you to the levels. Yesterday's high should get taken out. All probability that happens in the initial part of trade itself, going by what the GIFT Nifty suggests. So you'll want to get past yesterday's high, which is around 25,300, and build on from there. Remember, 25,500 is going to be an extremely important resistance mark. On the downside, yesterday's lows should get protected. That 24,900 is important to defend out there. And hopefully today we don't go anywhere close to that mark. The Nifty Bank will have to do the heavy lifting. Well, as we know, the 20 and the 50 DMA in that vicinity of around 59,200 to around 59,500. Today, you'll want the Gift Nifty, actually, the Nifty Bank actually to get closer to that mark, going by what the Gift Nifty is suggesting. A few stocks that I'm looking at, a stock that's coming out of the ban, which is going to be important, is going to be SAIL, and the one that's coming into the ban is Bandhan Bank. So both these two stocks will be on the radar. Finally, hopefully we have a good trading session, but the Indian rupee, this slide needs to stop. You know, whatever the economics is, but you don't want the rupee to depreciate further from here. That's another sentiment indicator. So hopefully that plays out. Net, Gift Nifty suggests a gap up. Hopefully we end with this sort of a gap up.
And global markets, too, are painting green this morning. If you pull up Asia right now, it's nearly a 2% rally coming through on Kospi, Nikkei. The Taiwanese markets, 1.8 to 2% higher on the key Asian market indices. But additionally, separately for India, US President Donald Trump has praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a mega money control exclusive. He called Prime Minister Modi a close friend and expressed confidence that India and United States will have a good deal soon, isn't it?
Mr. President, this is Chandra Shrikant from India. Can you give us an update on the India-US trade deal?
First of all, I have great respect for your Prime Minister. He's a fantastic man and friend of mine. And we're going to have a good deal.
Well, it's one line, but I think the markets will like the comment, especially in seen light with the fact that even on Greenland, the fear of tariffs, the fear of force has been averted, and global markets have reacted very, very positively. In fact, just talking a little bit more about Greenland, US President Donald Trump also said that he and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte have formed a framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland. In an interview with CNBC's Joe Kernan minutes after posting this statement on Truth Social, Trump described Greenland framework as the concept of a deal. Listen in.
Well, we have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland. And it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things.
The market, 600 points, getting back a lot of some of the nervousness we had in the last couple of days. The tariffs are off. Nothing happens on February 1st.
No, we took that off because it looks like we have pretty much a concept of a deal.
A deal of ownership, a deal...
Well, it's a little bit complex, but we'll explain it down the line. But the Secretary General of NATO and I and some other people were talking, and it's the kind of a deal that I wanted to be able to make.
Where does Denmark, did they weigh in on what they want, what they would agree to?
Well, I assume they did because he very much represents, he's a strong leader. Mark, you know Mark Rutte. And he... I assume he's been speaking to them. He's been speaking to all of them.
Markets have been swinging between fear and relief. So our U.S. markets, after posting the biggest fall in Tuesday's session in the last 3 months, rebounded very sharply on the back of Trump backing off. Dow was up nearly 600 points. True